All right, so I've propped up on the console, but I just finished War and Peace. Technically, I haven't finished the epilogues, but those are a couple hundred pages. But I finished everything else, and so I just wanted to share some of my favorite quotes from the book. Okay, so I really like this description of Pierre, one of the main characters. Pierre's insanity consisted in not waiting as he used to do to discover personal attributes which he termed good qualities in people before loving them. His heart was now overflowing with love, and by loving people without cause, he discovered indubitable causes for loving them. I think that's how you pronounce that word. Who knows? I love this so much because it just brings to mind like unconditional love and loving people not because of, like they said, like their good qualities, but just loving them as how they are. And I think that that love can just be transformational for people, and I think that that's a beautiful thing. And you know, that really stuck out to me. This was another quote that really stuck out to me. When two people quarrel, they are always both in fault, and one's own guilt suddenly becomes terribly serious when the other one is no longer alive. And that really stood out to me, just because, you know, when someone dies, you immediately think of the bad, like the last negative conversation you had with them. I think a lot of people have that. You know, when someone dies, they think of, you know, an argument you had that was really pointless. And I think that it's important to do that, you know, before someone dies. Don't wait until someone has died to have these conversations of, you know, we both argued about this. We were both privy to the argument because we both contributed to it. And it's not worth like being that bent out of shape about. And I'm sorry for my contribution to it. And I love you, you know, unconditionally and all of that. So I just really love thinking about it in that way. All right, so I love this other quote about laughter. He seldom laughed, but when he did, he abandoned himself entirely to his laughter. And after such a laugh, she always felt nearer to him. I don't remember which characters these are about. I didn't write that down. I just grabbed that one sentence because I think laughter is just such a powerful tool of connection. It's also really great medicine, right? Like when you're feeling really sick, to laugh just makes you feel better. And so, but I think, you know, right here they're talking about connection. And after, you know, this laugh, she felt closer to him just from his laugh. And I think that, you know, laughter, comedy, enjoying one another's company, having fun can just be just an important piece of building trust, community, connection with, you know, others around you, for sure. All right, I love this other sentence. When starting on a journey or changing their mode of life, men capable of reflection are generally in a serious frame of mind. At such moments, one reviews the past and plans for the future. And I think this is just a cool point to talk about, you know, a pivotal, transformational place in the journey. There's a truck going by. And I think this is an important part of reflection and how important it is to reflect at any point in your life, but also at like transformational or pivotal moments in your journey or when changes are happening, and really taking that time to reflect on the past and then, like they said, you know, your plans for the future as well. And I think that just, you know, reflection is so important, and that I think this quote, you know, really highlights that. All right, so here are just some really interesting ones to end on. The sense of human freedom, it seems to Tolstoy, is given only to those who have suffered. Human freedom is from suffering, is what I think this was at the beginning when someone was writing like an introduction or something about it. And I think that's super interesting because in the book that is true. Like Pierre, you know, he suffers a lot at the end after the war as a prisoner of war. And he has this sense of just human freedom and being free in the world and just not being burdened by his wealth, being burdened by societal's constrictions and standards on himself because he was in the upper, you know, echelons of upper tiers of society or whatever. And I think that that is something to really think about, is when you suffer, and to those who have suffered, does human freedom come from that? A sense of human freedom. And there's a lot of different types of suffering, right? There's mental suffering, there's physical suffering. So it's just something to reflect on. I think that that's super interesting. Here's another one. We accept the fact that mountains are never perfect pyramids. Isn't that interesting? I just wrote that down because I thought that was a beautiful sentiment, a beautiful statement, something beautiful to think about. Because that's right, they're never like a perfect 3D triangle or whatever, right? Like they have all these little crags, and you know, the journey is never just straight up and straight down. It's all these little ups and downs. And I think that's something super interesting to think about. And then finally, I want to end on this one. For in the eye of nature, there are neither heroes nor villains, but merely striving human beings. I think that is an amazing one to end on, because it makes you think about, like, we're all just doing our best, and we all were born into certain circumstances. We all have been given certain, like, dealt a certain hand of fate, and those are not our fault. So we all start at different areas in life, and we're all given different tools at different times, and a lot of it is just based on fate. And so in the eyes of nature, none of us are villains or none of us are heroes. We're just human beings trying our best on this journey of life. And I think that's a really beautiful way of looking at the human condition, and not thinking of people in terms of villains and heroes. Just, we're all doing our best, and that's the best the person could do at that time. You know what I mean? So I think that's a beautiful way to kind of end this reflection on Tolstoy's War and Peace. And it was a very long book, almost 3,000 words. Not words, wow, that'd be a very short book. 3,000 pages. And I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed more so the humanness of when Tolstoy was talking about the people. And a lot of it was about, you know, the highest part of society at the time in Russia, and all the drama that was kind of going on in that. But a lot of it was just very human emotions and human reflections, and I loved that part of it. A lot of the suffering and a lot of the war and just the absurdity of war, and the, just in my mind, the stupidity of the things that they were doing for ego, and the things they were doing for no really good reason in this war, that I enjoyed much less. It was all beautiful writing, and I definitely, you know, found a lot of it interesting, but the war parts of itself I just was really frustrated with, because I was like, this doesn't make sense. This is a stupid decision, and thousands, you know, hundreds of thousands of people are dying because of this dumb, you know, this ego trip by the commanders or whatever. So yeah, that was kind of my thought process. But it was a very interesting book. So many characters that you followed throughout the, you know 3,000 pages. So it was a little hard to keep track. And Tolstoy kept doing this thing where he would sometimes use a first name or sometimes use a last name, and I could never keep track. Just use one name. That's all you need to do. Just first name and last name. That's what really got me, was like the intermixing of that. But overall, thumbs up. I think it's really important to not only read, you know, shorter books or books from the present or contemporary times, but to read these classics, and to read really, really long books and be dedicated to that. You know, if you're enjoying it. If you're not, totally fine. But I think it's important to read some of these, you know, epic tales and be dedicated to that. Because this has taken me over a month to read. You know, I'm reading other books as I go, but usually I could probably have read 10 or 20 books in the same time period that I read this book, because it just takes so long. It takes so many pages. You know, most books are like 400 to 800 pages on my phone. Again, this is reading on my phone, but it's so long. But I think it's a really good practice to, you know, read some of these really long books. I'm also reading The Stand, which is over 3,000 pages long. So I think that's a good habit to get into, is not just reading short books, but reading any books, even if they are incredibly, incredibly long. All right, I am gonna go keep reading something else, and here we go.